Everybody, welcome to the videos where I'm breaking down the Monday Night Football Showdown slate between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Giants, and what should be, hopefully, a pretty fun game here. Lots of good fantasy options. I know the Giants are the best football team out there, but the Kansas City Chiefs haven't been playing like the best team either. Both defenses aren't that great, but some pretty fun offensive pieces here. The Chiefs obviously have the big three: Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. The Giants, Daniel Jones has had his fair share of decent games so far this year. Kadarius Toney, he's been electric when healthy. Sterling Shepard hasn't been too bad. There's a couple other pieces that are somewhat interesting. So I'm definitely a little bit excited to break this one down. 52-point over-under is a 10-point spread, but I'm hoping the Giants can cover to make this a pretty interesting game. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. It is the beginning of the month, so if you do want to sign up, now is the best time to do so. Spreadsheets, ownership projections, cheat sheets, projections, optimizers for all sports that are currently active: NASCAR, NBA, and NFL. So if you want to check it out, link can be found down below. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you're new signing over on PrizePicks, you get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. But I think that's it for the plugs for the most part, so without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position. And both these guys are definitely in play, although there's a massive pricing difference between the two. Patrick Mahomes all the way up to $12,000, the most expensive player on the slate. Meanwhile, Daniel Jones at $10,200 actually looks like a pretty good value considering the matchup and the potential that he's shown so far this season. But we'll start with Patrick Mahomes here. $12,000 gets a good matchup versus the Giants in what should be a pretty high-scoring game. The implied team totals at 31. They're 10-point favorites at home. I think this is a good get-right spot for the Kansas City Chiefs offense because I know they've been technically struggling recently. Patrick Mahomes, 9.4 fantasy points last week. Obviously left the game in the fourth quarter at one point, but he was still just not having a great day before that. But he's still averaging around 300 passing yards per game this season. I know the interceptions have been an issue, not all of them his fault. I know I've seen a couple myself. It's gone right through Tyreek Hill's hands into an interception, so you can't fully blame that on Patrick Mahomes, but over 2.5 passing touchdowns per game. He's actually been rushing the ball quite a bit recently. He's averaging around 31 rushing yards per game. I know it says less than 1 rushing attempt per game. That's designed runs. Looking at the actual numbers, which you include scrambles, 6'3", 8'5", in the past 5 weeks. He's had 45, 26, 61, 31, and 35 rushing yards, which is actually a nice little built-in floor that Patrick Mahomes has been offering us recently. Giants are currently 22nd DVA versus the pass, 20th versus the quarterback position. So I don't think it's a question of if you want to play Mahomes or not. He's projected as the best play in the entire slate. I think it's a matter of how much do you want to captain him. And a lot of people, especially just casual players, are going to jam in Patrick Mahomes in the captain spot at that massive price point, which I get. He definitely projects as the best player in the entire slate, which also means he projects as the highest captain. But for me, with how many good pass catching options that we have on this slate from both sides, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, even some of the secondary options for the Chiefs, and even on the Giants side of the ball. So I think the most likely outcome is that we probably see a skill position player, whether it be a running back, wide receiver, or tight end in the captain spot tonight. Not saying that's a given, which is why I'm probably going to have around 10 to 15% exposure to both quarterbacks in the captain spot on this slate. I'm just giving you guys an idea of probably where I'm going to land in terms of my captain exposure tonight. It's probably going to be pretty spread out for me. There's some slates where you're really concentrated on one captain, like a couple slates ago, Alvin Kamara, the clear-cut, most likely optimal captain on this slate. There's a lot of good players up top and even in the mid-range, so definitely want to be a little bit more spread out on this slate. So we'll drop down to Daniel Jones, $10,200, probably in the same captain exposure range, around 10 to 15% that I have for Patrick Mahomes. But his pass catching options are much cheaper. They're not fully healthy. Kadarius Toney still banged up, but he's trending towards playing. Sterling Shepard probably going to be a game-time decision. Obviously, no Kenny Golladay. Darius Slayton's healthy. Evan Ingram's good to go. No Saquon Barkley. He can always be a threat at the backfield, but still decently healthy. Definitely better than what we've had in some games where he has absolutely nobody. But this is a great matchup versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and like Patrick Mahomes, Daniel Jones has also been running the football quite a bit this season. Kind of had a 2-week stretch where he didn't really run the ball too much whatsoever, but I think the game script looks pretty good in terms of just racking up fantasy points for Daniel Jones because he's a 10-point dog on the road, which means should be some garbage time. I'm hoping this game stays close. I'm not sure it'll be a blowout because the Kansas City Chiefs defense has been pretty much letting anybody stay in the games these days, but I'm definitely a big fan of Daniel Jones here, and he's about $2,000 cheaper than Mahomes. And the Chiefs defense, like I said, has been absolutely terrible this season, especially versus quarterbacks. The 31st DVA versus the pass, and they're allowing the second most points per game to the position. And Daniel Jones is racking up really 33 rushing yards per game. So I'm liking him quite a bit. Matchup is pretty good, and he fits into our lineups quite nicely. Obviously, he doesn't project as well as Patrick Mahomes, but on a point per dollar basis, he's really not that far off. And moving on to our lineup, like I said, you can captain both quarterbacks. I don't have a problem with that. I will be doing that in some lineups on this slate. But as for right now, more of like a cash game build. If I go with Patrick Mahomes in the captain spot, I could still fit Daniel Jones in, but I'm definitely sacrificing a couple guys up top. So I think for right now, we're just going to plug them both in the flex spot, and we'll see if we can get into the captain spot at the end. But I feel like this is a pretty solid way to start out with. We still have around $7,000 left per player. Yes, the expensive player in the captain spot will bring that down a lot, but we'll have to see what kind of fits as we talk through this slate. And then moving on to the running back position, I'm more of a fan of the passing attack in this game, but both these guys, or I should say, there's like 4 options here. Darrell Williams and Jerick McKinnon for the Kansas City Chiefs, and Devontae Booker and Eli Pennell for the New York Giants. But these guys are really just mediocre options for the most part. I wish they were a bit cheaper, but they do find themselves in pretty good spots. I would say the game script for Darrell Williams probably looks a lot better than it would for Devontae Booker in this game. Williams is a 10-point favorite at home, so that's always usually a good setup for that home favorite running back. And plus, we've seen him utilized quite heavily when the game script isn't getting far away from him. Like last week, only played around 67% of the snaps, but you got to keep in mind the Chiefs, they were trailing that game big time versus the Tennessee Titans, so they really couldn't establish the run too much. Kind of got game scripted out of that game, more of a Jerick McKinnon game where he saw over 30% of the snaps. But Darrell Williams, the Chiefs are playing with the lead here, and they can establish the run. Darrell Williams will be the guy. I mean, we've seen him have over 20 total touches that 1 week, and he was the main running back. And the Giants are 25th versus the running back position, 27th DVA versus the run, having 111.5 rushing yards per game. So Williams definitely in a good spot here. McKinnon is fine just because of the price point. He should get like 2 to 4 targets in this game. We've seen him have 4 targets multiple times already. So at $1,000, that's not bad on a PPR site like DraftKings, but I'm not super excited about it. Then as for the Giants, Devontae Booker is the main back here. He's $8,200, and Eli Pennell had 9 carries last week, but Devontae Booker put in over 80% of the snaps. Both these guys find themselves in a great matchup versus KC. I like the matchup for the Chiefs running back versus the Giants, but this is an even better spot for the Giants running backs here. Chiefs are 31st DVA versus the run, similar to what they are versus the pass, and they're 21st versus the running back position, also allowing over 6 catches and 50 receiving yards per game to the positions. So while I think these guys are both somewhat interesting, I will have some exposure to them, I'm just not super excited about it, especially if the Giants are trailing this one. I think it'll be more of a passing attack game for the New York Giants, but I would not be surprised if Devontae Booker falls into the end zone and kind of upsets everybody because I think everybody would be more heavy in the passing attack. So just mentally prepared for that. Eli Pennell, if he can get 9 carries like he did last week at $600, that's not bad, especially if he happen to fall into the end zone. So keep Eli Pennell on your radar. Not super excited about rostering him. I think he should at least be in the conversation as far as dart throws go. And moving on to the wide receiver position, there's definitely a lot of guys to talk about here, so I wouldn't say it's quite easy to say that one guy is way better than the rest, besides obviously Tyreek Hill is $4,000 more expensive than anybody at the wide receiver position on this slate. But we'll start with the Kansas City Chiefs group here first, which consists of Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, and all the way down low at the bare minimum of $200. We have Josh Gordon. Looking at snap distributions last week, Demarcus Robinson led the team at nearly 80% of the snaps. Tyreek Hill right below him at 70%. Mecole Hardman close to 70% as well. Byron Pringle just around half the snaps. Then Josh Gordon got in about 10% of the snaps. Looking at target distributions so far this season, no surprise, Tyreek Hill leads the team, but they're on 10.5 targets with a 26% target share. Mecole Hardman just under 15% with the 5.5 targets per game. Byron Pringle just under 3 targets per game with an 8.3% target share. Demarcus Robinson on 2.5 targets per game with a similar 8% target share. Then Josh Gordon, the games he's played for the Chiefs this year, just about a half a target per game with a 1% target share. So he's kind of like an afterthought in this offense, but there's a chance he could just get a random deep ball and pay off at $200. But I mean, obviously Tyreek Hill, he's one of the best captain plays in the entire slate. His upside is matched by pretty much nobody else in the NFL. His big playability, the speed he has, and he's got one of the best quarterbacks in football throwing him the ball, so that obviously helps things as well. But Tyreek Hill, loving him pretty much everywhere. One of my absolute favorite plays in the entire slate. There's a chance he could be my highest owned captain. I'm not sure exactly what my captain exposure distribution is going to look like yet, but he is definitely in the cards to being my highest owned guy just because the upside he has is a good matchup versus the Giants. Secondary whatsoever. They're 26th versus wide receivers this season and 22nd DVA versus the pass. So I don't think it's a question of whether we like Tyreek Hill. I think everyone likes Tyreek Hill on the slate. I think the question is, who do we like out of these secondary options? Mecole Hardman's the favorite, but he's also nearly $5,000, and while he's on the field a lot, running a lot of routes, 5.5 targets per game isn't the most exciting thing out there, but it's not bad at his price point. We've seen him have some decent games so far this season. But Byron Pringle, I feel like he always shows out in primetime. I don't have the exact numbers to look it up, but I feel like every primetime game, Byron Pringle always happens to do something. and that price isn't bad. He plays around 50% of the snap, so it's not like we're kind of just hoping he gets onto the field. He's on the field. We just have to hope he gets the targets, which he's averaging on 3 per game, which is not bad at $2,200. Demarcus Robinson plays a lot of snaps, but he just doesn't have a huge role in the offense in terms of getting volume. It's just like after Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, everyone else is just pretty much picking up scraps for the most part. And Josh Gordon, maybe he catches a target, maybe he does something with it, maybe he catches a random touchdown, which I could see happening. Showdown sites are always nuts. So if you're going to roster a couple Josh Gordon lineups, that's fine, but he's not in the field too often, only 11% of the snaps last week. And as for the Giants, I don't know who's going to be healthy for this game yet. We'll probably know Sterling Shepard's status right before the game starts, like when they release inactives and actives. So I have no idea if he's going to play yet. If he does, I like Sterling Shepard. I mean, they're 10-point dogs on the road. It's a great matchup versus KC. They're 31st DVA versus the pass. Whoever is healthy for the Giants at wide receiver is going to be a good play in the slate. Kadarius Toney, I'm pretty sure, is going to play. If that's the case, he's my favorite out of the bunch here. The guy's electric. He's great in open space, and he's super talented. It's really fun to watch Kadarius Toney play. He had 3 targets and 3 catches in that first drive versus the Rams before getting hurt. And the games he's played fully healthy, Kadarius Toney has been amazing. The problem is there's so many injuries for the Giants each and every single week. It's hard to talk about snap counts because these guys just keep going in and out. It's like a revolving door of who's going to be healthy or not. Like Dante Pettis has picked up the slack the past couple weeks. We saw John Ross play over 50% of the snaps last week, but we also had Kenny Golladay, Kadarius Toney, and Sterling Shepard out last week. So hard to know who's going to play. It's hard to look at the numbers this season. Like Dante Pettis has a 20% target share. Kadarius Toney has a 13% target share. That does not mean I like Dante Pettis more than Kadarius Toney. So don't make any final decisions yet. Wait until the report comes out who's actually going to be active for the Giants. If I had to pick, though, if they're fully healthy, Sterling Shepard, Kadarius Toney, definitely the guys I want. And then moving back to our lineup, there's a lot of guys we could plug in here. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to go with the captain spot. I think Tyreek Hill would look great here, but I also think one of these Giants wide receivers in the captain spot would not look too bad either. We have both quarterbacks in the flex spot, so whichever way we go would make sense correlation-wise. So if we plugged in Tyreek Hill, it's obviously going to take a beating to our salary remaining. It's just under $4,000 left per player. If we happen to use one of these Giants guys in the captain spot, like let's say Kadarius Toney at $10,200, it leaves us just under $6,000 for our last 3 flex spots, which we could probably fit in a Travis Kelce or a Tyreek Hill. So for right now, I mean, this might not be the best way to go in cash games. I'm just trying to build a lineup to see what fits. Let's just leave in Kadarius Toney, and then at the end we can kind of swap some guys around, and we'll see what looks good. And then moving on to the tight end position, pretty interesting position here. Usually tight ends are kind of just, well, maybe they catch a couple balls, maybe they fall into the end zone, maybe they don't, but they're fine at their price points. But these guys are actually pretty interesting. Travis Kelce, I mean, it's pretty obvious best tight end in football. He's got Patrick Mahomes giving the ball. He's on the Chiefs offense. Yeah, no reason not to like Travis Kelce in the spot. It's just a matter of being able to afford him because decisions have to be made because you cannot afford both quarterbacks and Travis Kelce with Tyreek Hill and still get another solid option. Like, you have to make some decisions up top on this slate. You can't play them all, unfortunately. And Evan Ingram finds himself in a fantastic matchup versus the Chiefs defense. We'll start with the Chiefs here first. It's pretty much Travis Kelce and then a little bit of Noah Gray, Blake Bell mixed in there because Fortson, whatever his name is, he's on the IR. But Travis Kelce, I mean, he gets wide receiver 1 type volume. I wouldn't say he's been as dominant as he was last season. The yardage numbers are down, but he's still seeing similar volume, about a 25% target share, similar market share to the team's air yards. I mean, as Travis Kelce, there's nothing ever bad to say about him, just a matter of being able to afford him. Giants are 17th versus tight end position. Don't really care about matchups for Travis Kelce. He is matchup proof. As far as Evan Ingram goes, $5,400. It's a boost to him if some of these wide receivers happen to not play, but if they're all in, definitely a downgrade for him. But he's still seeing solid volume this season for a tight end, over 5 targets per game, 15.5% target share. The Chiefs have been terrible versus tight ends for a couple of seasons now. They currently rank 28th versus tight ends, in addition to being 31st DVA versus the pass, giving about 82 receiving yards, over half a receiving touchdown per game to the position. So Evan Ingram firmly in play at his price point. Wouldn't say he's my favorite play out there, but he is viable if he happens to score a touchdown. Yeah, $5,400. That does not look too bad. Kyle Rudolph, $1,800. He plays similar snaps to Evan Ingram. Obviously doesn't get quite the receiving volume. $1,800 if he happens to catch a goal line touchdown. Not too bad as a pump play, so keep him on your radar. And as far as defenses go, you guys typically know my position. I do not play them in the captain spot. I would do like a 1% max, and even then, sometimes I just completely X them out. And in the flex spot, I try to be underweight. If I'm projecting a defense to be 20% owned on a showdown slate, I'll try to go around 10 to 15%. And really, unless they're scoring defensive touchdowns or there's just no offense whatsoever on the slate, they're just usually not in the optimal lineup, especially in the captain spot, unless they score a defensive touchdown. If there happens to be a defensive touchdown, whatever, I'll take the L there, but the chances of that happening are quite slim. Kickers, they are what they are. If they hit their field goals, they become decent value plays, and if they don't, well, you're pretty disappointed. They're decent floor guys, but their ceilings are quite low, so I think they're fine in cash games, but in tournaments, I tend to be even to the field or slightly underweight on kickers and hardly ever at all in the captain spot. Usually put a 1% max in the captain spot in my optimizer, and it typically gives me 0 for the most part. So then moving to our lineup to finish this off, and keep in mind guys, I have no idea if I'll end up playing this lineup on this slate. I'm just putting it together as we talk just to see what fits and what doesn't, so please don't copy and paste this. If that's what you're doing, you guys need to learn how to make your own lineups. But anyway, we have 3 spots left, around $6,000 left for our last 3 spots. We can pick between Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce here. I feel like you're going to at least want one of those guys in your lineup. For me, I'm going to go Tyreek Hill just because I love the ceiling he offers you. Travis Kelce maybe is a bit safer, but Tyreek Hill, I'll be chasing that ceiling on this slate. Not saying I'm not playing Travis Kelce. I'm going to have a boatload of Travis Kelce. I just mean for this specific lineup, let's chase that really high ceiling that Tyreek Hill offers us. $3,300 left for our last couple of spots. We could go with like a punt option, either Jerick McKinnon or Demarcus Robinson. I guess we can plug Robinson in just because we have Patrick Mahomes. Our pass catching options pair with him. That leaves us around $6,000 left, which we could fit in Evan Ingram. We could go with Dante Pettis. I'll let you guys use your imagination. I did say I really like Tyreek Hill in the captain spot, so if you wanted to swap that out and put Tyreek Hill in and put a big dent in our salary, but I still think we can make it work. Like, we still have $5,200 left for our last couple of spots if we happen to go the Demarcus Robinson route. If you want to throw in a kicker like Harrison Butker, that leaves you $6,500 left, which is a guy like Darius Slayton, which is totally fine. So even if you go expensive at captain and fit in both quarterbacks, you don't have to play both quarterbacks. I'll also lineups without both quarterbacks. Voting lineups is pretty flexible if you do venture down to some of these punt options on this. And hopefully it's a good game, because some of these primetime games have been absolutely brutal, like last night's game, Cooper Rush and Kirk Cousins. It was pretty bad for a long stretch of that game. But with that being said, I think that'll be it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you want to take that one step further, become a official member over on Patreon. Now's the best time to do so, considering it's the first of the month. Optimizers, ownership projections, cheat sheets, projections, you name it, it's probably on there. If you join the free content over on YouTube, I'm sure you like the extra content over on the Patreon. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by PrizePicks, just you versus the projections. And as of right now, if you're new sign over there, you get a free money bonus up to $100, so it's free money. Why not use it to your advantage when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. I think it'll be it. I will stop right now. I wish you guys the best of luck tonight, and hopefully, it's an enjoyable game.